Not good enough. Enough is just slack. Where I come from. Okay, that'll do. See if we can find in the and see if this falls out. Yeah, you can use it, but it's just dicky. Okay, rightio. See if you can find in the songbook, in the songs, which it'll be there. It's oh, my phone is telling me that we're live now. Rightio. Just bear with me for a second. Go away. Krishna, Krishna. It's just hang on. I've got to find it. Sri Krishna Chaitanya. It starts off. It's Savo something. No. It's a song by Narottam Das. And I'll see if I can find it here. Huh? You got it? What's it called? Yeah, that's it. Oh, that's the song titles. Make Prabhupada read? You can, but we don't have a copy of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta reader. So it's not, I don't think it's not absolutely essential. It'd be nice, but there we go. It is called Savarna Sri Gaura Pada Padme Prarthana. Could I have a copy, please? Hi, Babaluji. Can I have a copy? Because my phone will switch off. Yeah, that's good. Oh, Krishna. Okay. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Goya Koro More Shri Krishna Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Goya Koro More Hare Toma bina ki dayalu jagat samsari O jagat samsari Toma bina ki dayalu Jagat samsari samsare patita pavana hetu tava avatar hetu tava avatar patita pavana hetu tava avatar hetu tava avatar masama patita Prabhu na paebeya Tita Prabhu paebeya Masama patita Prabhu na paebeya Masama patita Prabhu na paebeya Aha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Aha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Nanda Sukhi Kripa Balokana Koro Ami Boroduki Anakaro Ami Boroduki Kripa Balokana Koro Ami Boroduki Doya Goro Sitapate Advaita Gosai Sitapate Advaita Gosai Doya Goro Sitapate Advaita Gosai Sitapate Advaita Gosai Java Kripa Bole Pai Caitanya-caritāmṛta 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 Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raguna Rupa Raguna Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raguna Guna Bhatta Juga Sri Jiva Prabhu Lokana Bhatta Juga Sri Jiva Prabhu Lokana Bhatta Juga Sri Jiva Prabhu Lokana Prabhu Lokana Toya Koro Se Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Se Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Toya Koro Se Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangha Mage Naro Tamodar Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamaga Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamaga Mage Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Doya Koro More Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Koro More Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Doya Koro More Doya Koro More. Okay. No translation, huh? Okay. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Brinda Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Sri Guruve Namaha. Did I miss something out there? Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Mahiyam Dadati Svabadantikam Mukkam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yad Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam. So we're going to begin on this day. It is the Ekadasi Tithi of the Pushya month, the Gora Paksha. And tomorrow is the Mahadwadasi, right? We fast tomorrow. No. Yeah. So, okay. So, that's an auspicious day to start, I guess. Presented to my friends and devotees who'd like to read my books and who approached me to request that I render the great Caitanya-caritāmṛta into English. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So, before the book starts, there's a preface, a foreword, and an introduction. So we'll start with the preface. There is no difference between the teachings of Lord Chaitanya presented here and the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya are practical demonstrations of Lord Krishna's teachings. Lord Krishna's ultimate instruction in the Bhagavad Gita is that everyone should surrender unto him. It's okay, I can do it. I've had plenty of practice. Lord Krishna. Krishna promises to take immediate charge of such a surrendered soul. What's that verse? Yes, Avradhanam. Do not fear. So if we surrender to Krishna, he'll look after us. The Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is already in charge of the maintenance of this creation by virtue of his plenary expansion, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. But this maintenance is not direct. However, when the Lord says that he takes charge of his pure devotee, he actually takes direct charge. A pure devotee is a soul who is forever surrendered to the Lord. Just as a child is surrendered to his parents, or an animal is to its master. In the surrendering process, one should, 1, accept things favourable for discharging devotional service. 2, reject things unfavourable. 3, always believe firmly in the Lord's protection. 4, feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. 5, have no interest separate from the interest of the Lord. And 6, always feel oneself meek and humble. The Lord demands that one surrender unto him by following these 6 guidelines. What does demand mean? It's an expectation. Yeah, it's a demand. It's an order and an expectation. But the unintelligent so-called scholars of the world misunderstand these demands and urge the general mass of people to reject them. At the conclusion of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna directly orders, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me alone, and offer obeisances unto me alone. By so doing, the Lord says, one is sure to go to him in his transcendental abode. But the scholarly demons misguide the masses of people by directing them to surrender not to the personality of Godhead, but rather to the impersonal, unmanifested, eternal, unborn truth. The impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers do not accept that the ultimate aspect of the absolute truth is the supreme personality of Godhead. If one desires to understand the sun as it is, one must first face the sunshine, and then the sun globe, and then if one is able to enter into that globe, one may come face to face with the predominating deity of the sun. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, the Mayavadi philosophers cannot go beyond the Brahman effulgence, which may be compared to the sunshine. The Upanishads confirm that one has to penetrate the dazzling effulgence of Brahman before one can see the real face of the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya, therefore, teaches direct worship of Lord Krishna, who appeared as the foster child of the king of Braj. He also teaches that the place known as Vrindavan is as good as Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna, being the absolute truth, there is no difference between him and his name, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia. That is the absolute nature of the personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya also teaches that the highest mode of worship in the highest perfectional stage is the method practiced by the damsels of Braj. These damsels, gopis or cowherd girls, simply loved Krishna without any motive for material or spiritual gain. Lord Chaitanya also teaches that Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the spotless narration of transcendental knowledge, and that the highest goal in human life is to develop unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya's teachings are identical to those given by Lord Kapila, the original propounder of Sankhya Yoga, the Sankhya system of philosophy. This authorized system of yoga teaches meditation on the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no question of meditating on something void or impersonal. When one can meditate on the transcendental form of Lord Vishnu, even without practicing involved sitting postures, such meditation is called perfect samadhi. That this kind of meditation is perfect samadhi is confirmed at the end of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that of all yogis, The greatest is the one who constantly thinks of the Lord within the core of his heart with love and devotion. On the basis of the Sankhya philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which maintains that the Supreme Lord is simultaneously one with and different from his creation, Lord Chaitanya taught that the most practical way for the mass of people to practice Sankhya Yoga meditation is simply to chant the holy name of the Lord. He taught that the holy name of the Lord is the sound incarnation of the Lord. And that since the Lord is the absolute whole, there is no difference between his holy name and his transcendental form. Thus, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can directly associate with the Supreme Lord by sound vibration. As one practices this sound vibration, one passes through 3 stages of development: the offensive stage, the clearing stage, and the transcendental stage. In the offensive stage of chanting, one may desire all kinds of material happiness, but in the second stage, one becomes clear of all material contamination. When one is situated on the transcendental stage, one attains the most coveted position, the stage of loving God. Ooh. Lord Chaitanya taught that this is the highest stage of perfection for human beings. Okay. Yoga practice is essentially meant for controlling the senses. The central controlling factor of all the senses is the mind. Therefore, one first has to practice controlling the mind by engaging it in Krishna consciousness. The gross activities of the mind are expressed through the external senses, either for the acquisition of knowledge or for the functioning of the senses in accordance with the will. The mind has 3 functions. The subtle activities of the mind are thinking, feeling, and willing, which are carried out according to one's consciousness, either polluted or clear. If one's mind is fixed on Krishna, his name, qualities, form, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia, all one's activities, both subtle and gross, become favourable. The Bhagavad Gita's process of purifying consciousness is the process of fixing one's mind on Krishna by talking of his transcendental activities, cleansing his temple, going to his temple, seeing the beautiful transcendental form of the Lord nicely decorated, hearing his transcendental glories, tasting food offered to him, associating with his devotees, smelling the flowers and tulsi offered to him, engaging in activities for the Lord's interest, becoming angry at those who are malicious toward devotees, etc. We're not necessarily into peace. Prabhupada makes a point. The tradition of the Vaishnavas is based on two stories. What are those stories? The 2 main stories. Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And what are they about? What do they culminate in? a big fight. So if you think you've joined if you think the Hare Krishna movement is about peace and love, forget about it. No, actually, everything it can be used in a positive way for spiritual purpose and spiritual practice. And so that's why Prabhupada. And what verses is Prabhupada quoting here in this section that I just read? What verses is Prabhupada quoting? Does anybody know? Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo vachamsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane karo Hare mandira majanadishu shrutim acharya, what is it? Achuta satkatodaya, something like that. It's a description of Maharaj Ambarish, who is the ruler of the whole universe. Right? We think our premier or our prime minister is somebody special or important, but in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and in the Ramayana and in the Mahabharata, we hear of people who are the rulers or the kings of a whole planet, right? Which is pretty far out. You know, we think, oh, how is it possible that anybody could be in charge of the Earth planet, right? Especially in this day and age, considering all of the idiocy that goes on in the name of leadership, right? So that's hard for us to conceive. Somebody who's the king and is in charge of the whole planet. It's like, what? Not possible. Only because that's outside of our realm of experience. But we hear of personalities in the Vedas who are in charge of the whole universe. What to speak of a whole planet? You know, we struggle to get a tin can on the dark side of the moon, right? And then, you know, we're celebrating, oh, we sprouted a chickpea, or whatever it was, right? What was it? Cottonseed, right, yeah, cottonseed. Chickpea probably too hard, right? And then have a guess what? It gets so cold it died. Oh. And they say, oh yeah, we knew that would happen. So this is apparently a great step forward, you know, for mankind, that we can sprout a chickpea on the dark side of the moon. But when we hear of the character and the personalities of these great devotees, and of course this is why we're studying such a book as the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us the very, very basics of spiritual practice, right? And it culminates, as Prabhupada is saying here, in surrender to Krishna. Right? Bhagavad Gita culminates with Sava Dharmam Parijajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Right? But what's lacking is how to surrender. We're given some clues. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Surrender to Krishna. It's interesting, Prabhupada says here that Lord Chaitanya teaches the direct method of worshipping Krishna. But actually, our process isn't a direct method. In one sense, but in another sense it is. And that's why there's the emphasis on the Lord and His pastimes, His name, His forms, His paraphernalia, His entourage, and even His service is non-different from Him, right? But we learn that process not directly from Krishna, but through His representative, the spiritual master, or spiritual masters, plural, right? And if we look at the first verse of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Krishnadas Kaviraj offers his obeisances to the spiritual masters. In fact, the first chapter of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta is called the spiritual masters, plural. Not the spiritual master, only one, right? And his first obeisances, or his first offering of respects, right, is Vande Gurun. I offer my obeisances to my gurus, not my guru singular, but my gurus plural. Because we learn from so many individuals who act as our Siksha gurus, and they teach us the method by which we approach Krishna directly. Right? What was mentioned in the purport? What is one of the methodologies? In fact, the prime methodology, the topmost methodology of approaching Krishna directly. What was mentioned in the purport? Can anybody remember? Please raise your hands if you think you know, without looking at the book. Chanting Hare Krishna. Very good. Go to the top of the class. Chanting. Right? We can directly connect with Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. Right? We can directly connect with Krishna by doing some service. We can connect to Krishna by hearing about his pastimes. We can connect with Krishna by seeing the deity. So it's interesting. Ambarish Maharaj is described here as a personification of bhakti. Right? So, Savai Mana Krishna, he's always thinking about Krishna. So what does Prabhupada say here? The Bhagavad Gita's process of purifying consciousness is the process of fixing one's mind on Krishna. Right? By talking Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindaya Vachampsi Vaikunta Gunanuvarnane. By talking Vacho, right? Vachampsi Vaikunta, guna, the qualities of Vaikunta, right? What is one of the qualities of Vaikunta? Huh? No misery. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Krishna lives there, right? Krishna lives there. That's why it's such a special place, right? Talking of his transcendental activities, and then Karo Hare Mandira. What does that mean? Mandira Karo. Go to the temple. Right? And what do you do when you get there? Marjanadi Shu. What do you do when you get there? Clean it. Clean it. So what does that mean? What is that symbolical of? Going to the temple and? Huh? Love Krishna. Serve. Yes, serve. We go to the temple to get some Mahaprasadam. Right? That's service. Right? Prasada Sevaya. Prabhupada says you can eat your way back home to Godhead. Although it will take a long time. And in the meantime, you might as well brush up on your chanting because that'll be quicker. But anyway, seeing the beautiful form of the Lord. Nice. This is it's very practical. So, you know, the end of the Bhagavad Gita is surrender to Krishna. But there's not a lot of detail in the Bhagavad Gita of how to surrender. There's a lot about mind control, meditation. So Prabhupada mentions here Sankhya, because the Bhagavad Gita contains a lot about Sankhya. And he mentions this, what is the best form of Sankhya, or the meditation on the form of the Lord? Sankhya means to discriminate. Right? So instead of meditating on the material forms, we're encouraged to meditate on the spiritual form. But first of all, we've got to know the difference between the two. Right? So there's Sankhya, there's discrimination, there's counting. But Sankhya means literally to count. So the Bhagavad Gita has some very, very basic instructions. And so we get a hint. And as Prabhupada says here, basically the Bhagavad Gita teaches us yoga practice, and yoga practice means to control the mind and the senses. Right? And so how do we do that? And he gives a whole list here. Whole list of things that we do to control the mind and the senses, and those activities as we're gradually purified. Chanting Hare Krishna and then performing all of these different items of bhakti, they'll bring us directly in association with Krishna. As we move through that, the offensive stage of chanting, the clearing stage of chanting, and then eventually we'll come to the point of we'll come to the stage of pure chanting, transcendental chanting, Prabhupada says. And on that level, then automatically our Satchit Ananda form will manifest. Right? We'll always be happy. We'll always be knowledgeable. We'll always be situated in a state of constancy. Right? So the Bhagavad Gita gives us a hint. The Bhagavatam teaches us by example what bhakti is. Right? We see through all of the great devotees in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam and the narration of their pastimes how a devotee behaves. Right? Chitraketu Maharaj, Indrajuna Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, so many Maharajas, Kapila Dev. What's Kapila Dev's father? Kardama Muni, Devahuti, Kunti. So many devotees in the Bhagavatam that we can learn we can learn to recognize a devotee. Not so easy, because in the Bhagavatam we see even some of the demons are devotees. They say don't judge a book by its cover. Right? Just because somebody is born in a family of demons doesn't mean that he's a demon. Right? We see that with Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. A classic example is Vritrasura. Vritrasura is a demon, but at the same time he's also a great, great devotee. Even we see a devotee in the form of an elephant, right? So, it's the external covering. I say to, sometimes people complain, too many Indians at the temple. Right? Have you heard that? They don't tell you. They tell me. I say, come on, these are my friends. Don't judge the Hare Krishna movement by the ethnicity of the people in the temple room. Right? This is what people did in 1966, 1968. Oh, look, all a bunch of hippies here. Right? This is so external. Right? It's so ephemeral, the body that we have and the body that people have. What we've got to see, and the way we learn to see what a devotee or who a devotee is by studying the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And of course the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam comes to the point of the 10th canto and where we see what is described here in this preface. The topmost worship is that worship which is epitomized or which is manifest in the love and affection that the gopis, what does Prabhupada say here? The highest mode of worship, in the highest perfectional stage is the method practiced by the damsels of Braj. Have you heard of the Shaki Beki? The Shaki Beki Sahajas. They think that if you wear kajal and makeup and dress in a sari, then you can, be a gopi. In other words, it's the external manifestation that makes the internal. But the Bhagavatam actually it teaches us something different. By studying the nature and the characteristic of the devotees, we want to see the internal characteristics, not the external. The external will show a lot or reveal a lot of what's going on internally, right? We say the face is the index to the mind. If we want to work out the mentality of somebody, we look at their face, right? So we can tell. Because then we listen to what they have to say. Prabhupada says the most important quality of a man is his speech. And then we test the speech, right, by what they do. Right? Practice what you preach. Otherwise, you can say so many things, right, and still be a nonsense. Huh? So the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada says here, Lord Chaitanya teaches, the Bhagavatam is the spotless narration of transcendental knowledge because it describes all of the activities of the devotees. That's the topmost knowledge. In fact, the devotees are, ideally, we should be, we aspire to be, the emblems of this knowledge. And that's why we study the personalities in the Bhagavatam, because they exhibit here, the highest goal in human life is to develop unalloyed love for Krishna. And that's what the gopis manifest. Right? That degree, and you see in the gopis how much they surrender everything just to please Krishna. And so they exemplify this sarvadharmam. They exemplify surrender. And of course, at the beginning of this preface, Prabhupada talks about the qualities of surrender. Accepting that which is favourable, rejecting that which is unfavourable. Feeling oneself always under the Lord's protection. Even when you're getting clobbered. Do you know what clobbered means? Clobber. Even if you're getting smashed. That's what clobbered means. You still feel like you're being surrendered by Krishna. Anybody here who feels protected by Krishna even when they're getting smashed? Raise your hands. You think, Krishna, what are you doing this for? I'm your devotee. What are you picking on me for? This is somewhat of a Protestant ethic. That because you're a worshipper of God, that means you're automatically good. And so therefore everything, to become a follower of God means you'll automatically become, your economic development will improve. But there's a famous song written by George Gershwin, right, about the Bible, right? It's called It Ain't Necessarily So. So anyway, the Bhagavatam and the gopis exhibit this transcendental knowledge, the highest goal in human life. The manifestation of unalloyed love for Krishna. Right, that's in the gopis. That's the goal. Prabhupada says the goal is actually to see Krishna. We'll know we're perfect when we see Krishna. Right? Are you seeing Krishna? Yeah, 7 o'clock in the morning. So you're on the path of perfection. Okay, now, in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, what we see is, interestingly, we see the manifestation of Krishna's pastimes, which are originally performed in Vrindavan, right? Originally performed in Vrindavan, and demonstrated most notably by the Brajabasis, the highest of which are the gopis, but also the gopas. There's a range of devotional sentiment exhibited in Vrindavan by all of the devotees. Those pastimes, directly in relationship with Krishna, are demonstrated in Kali Yuga in the performance of the Sankirtan pastimes exhibited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. Right? So and the purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearance was or is to teach that and to demonstrate that spiritual activity, those transcendental activities, as manifest in the Sankirtan pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So they're setting, Lord Chaitanya and his devotees are setting the example of how to practice bhakti, how to surrender, right? So that one attains this highest stage of unalloyed love for Krishna. And so we get a hint in the Bhagavad Gita, we get a demonstration of the pastimes of the devotees through all of the different pastimes that we find in the Bhagavatam. In the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, in the example of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, we get a demonstration, a practical lesson, if you like, on how to perform bhakti in this day and age, so that we rise to the platform of unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why the Caitanya-caritāmṛta is so important, because it sets the template, or it sets the It sets the example of behaviour of the devotees. Right? And the mood of how do we become like the saints and the devotees, like the gopis? How do we become like them? How do we achieve that unalloyed love of Godhead? We achieve that in the Kali Yuga by by participating in the Sankirtan pastimes of the Lord. And so that's what's demonstrated in the pages of the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, the philosophy, right, and the practice of bhakti appropriate to this day and age, right? We're not living in Vrindavan, in case you hadn't noticed. And not everybody's a devotee. In Vrindavan, every now and again the demons came in and disturbed things. But I don't know if you've noticed, the demons are disturbing things all the time. And in fact, it's hard. It's even though people appear civilized and they've got 2 legs and 2 arms and they look like human beings, actually their behavior tells us something else, right? So we're living in a very peculiar environment where one needs a very practical methodology for practicing spiritual life. So the practical application of the principles of the Bhagavad Gita and the process by which we can cultivate the characteristics and the behaviour and the internal mood of the devotees that we find in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam that practice and that cultivation of bhakti is all demonstrated for us in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, and that's why this book is so important. And why, even before Prabhupada finished off the Bhagavatam, he just set aside the time to write the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Huh? So, this demonstration of how to engage the mind and how to engage the senses in activities that transport us from the material consciousness, from the material realm of existence, and transport us into a spiritual vision of everything. And that's what we want, and that's entirely achievable, right? So that instead of seeing the external forms, we're able to see the internal movements of the living entities, and able to appreciate the qualities of bhakti and the qualities of the bhakta, right? And be able to become a bhakta with bhakti. We can do that in this environment. We're creating that environment by following the advice of Krishna Das Kaviraj and of course Srila Prabhupada's purports. We are becoming, or we should become, devotees, bhaktas, bhaktas, and with bhakti. And that means Shuddha bhakti, pure devotee. We should become pure devotees. That's why people are attracted to the devotees, because the pure devotees who experience the highest pleasures of engagement in service to Krishna, and people are very attracted to those qualities of the devotees. And that's why the Caitanya-caritāmṛta is so powerful and important, because we get a vision, we get an experience, we get a taste, right, of that amrita. It's nectar. Amrita means nectar. Right. Chaitanya means the life force. Right. And of course the life force of the devotees is bhakti. Right. That total devotion to Krishna. Oh, for the day when we have total devotion for Krishna. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And how do we do that? We follow Krishna Das Kaviraj. And Krishna Das Kaviraj was a disciple of Raghunath Das, and he was instructed by Lord Nityananda, ultimately Lord Balaram. He had a falling out with his brother. You know the story? Krishna Das Kaviraj had a falling out with his brother because his brother disparaged Lord Nityananda. And Krishna Das Kaviraj couldn't countenance that state. He rejected him. Actually, you know what? There's some amazing statements in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Here's one. Krishna Das Kaviraj says, if you worship Radha and Krishna, but you don't worship the Panchatattva, then you are a demon. Hey, you like that? You'll make friends that influence people in India if you go around championing some of these. But isn't that's a strong statement? Strong statement. Maybe not something that we parade around in public too much, right? we should be aware that Srila Prabhupada had his public persona and his public statements, and also his private persona and statements that were made in private. Right? We should be mindful of, or we should be aware. You know, it's things that you might shout at your children in the kitchen, right? You wouldn't go out on the street and so we have a public persona and we have a private persona. Is that right? You behave differently at work than you do at home, right? At home you lounge around, you leave your clothes on the floor at your own risk, at your own peril, right? You wouldn't do that in the office. Right? So anyway, Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote the Caitanya-caritāmṛta at a very late age. He was practically invalid. Right? But he used the diaries of Murari Gupta, who was a very intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya in the early years, and he used the diaries of who else? Who was the other person? Somebody say? And he also heard from Raghunath Das, who was a disciple of Swarup Damodar when Swarup Damodar was Lord Chaitanya's secretary. Right? So who was the first person I say the diaries from? Murari Gupta. Who was the other one? I forgot. I read it before, but anyway. So Krishnadas Kaviraj had his source material very, very close to people who knew. No, Vrindavan Das Thakur is a different source of. Hang on. We'll put it away. We'll go and see Google Dave. I've lost it. Anyway, so we're very fortunate to have the teachings of Krishnadas Kaviraj, and it is my plan to read the Caitanya-caritāmṛta every Thursday evening. Anybody have any comments or questions at this point? There's plenty to read too. There's plenty. It's Amrit, nectar. So, actually, I'll tell you a story, personal story. I used to, when we used to serve the Sunday feast. We used to, the single men, the Brahmacharis especially, used to cook the Sunday feast with korma every week. And so, we'd be in the kitchen at 9:30 after prasadam, after breakfast. And I was a very young devotee. I used to think, what a terrible waste of a Sunday morning. I could be just sleeping. My Sunday mornings were just for doing nothing. waking up late and doing nothing, right? But Karma had us in the kitchen. And you know what Karma used to do? You'd have to cut up first, right? So Karma would get the potatoes or the tomatoes or the capsicum or whatever, and he'd chop up the example of how you had to do it. And if you didn't do it, watch out. He would give it to you. So it was a rigorous exercise. But Karma would cook some amazing feasts. Right? Like, there'd maybe be 120 or 150 people would come for the Sunday feast. So Karma would put effort into the preps. And, you know, we'd have stuffed, say for example, stuffed puris. So the puris would be cooked, and then he'd make some sour cream kind of preparation and put that in the puri with some masala on top. And Sunday feasts were pretty good, weren't they? Karma's Sunday's feasts were fantastic. And, you want to be okay? Yes, we can, but you have to be in the you have to be in the kitchen at 9:30 on Sunday morning. All of us have to be there because it's labour intensive. But of course, that's bhakti. You know, the Sunday feast. Oh, what have I got to do? It's too hard. We've got to cook for 400, 500, 600 people now. What are we going to do? But they just want to be there for 2 hours. So what's that? That's just like a machine. So in one sense, that's not really bhakti. Right? And you see it, like in the festivals. The girls, Jai Radha, and the other girls who do we do all these fantastic decorations, and they spend hours doing that. And how long does it last? A few hours, and then it's just rubbish in the backyard. Right? So we could think, well, why do they put all of this effort into this? You know, why do they do that? It just becomes rubbish at the end, right? But why do we do it? Why do we put that effort into decorating and making everything look good, even though it's just for 24 hours? Huh? Love. Yes, it's called bhakti. It pleases Krishna. It definitely pleases Krishna. And how do we feel? How do you feel at the end of Janmashtami or at the end of Vyasa Puja? How do you feel? You feel like you're floating on a cloud of Vaikuntha, right? You just feel like, yes, this is it. This is why I became a Hare Krishna, because it makes me so happy. Right? It makes me so happy I could cry. Right? If you are happy and you're crying, that's the goal of life. Isn't it? So anyway, it was a lot of effort. A lot of effort. And usually by 4 o'clock you're pretty hungry. Right? In fact, we were young Brahmacharis, so they used to feed us before we served out the feast. Because we would have treated the guests very nicely if we didn't have something to eat. In fact, I used to see people coming in, I think, what's wrong with these stinking kami demons? Why don't they surrender to Krishna like I do? Don't they understand? So puffed up. I was thinking, I'm such a good devotee, and you're all a bunch of demons. So, this is immature, by the way. This is called Kanishta. Kanishta Adhikari thinks, I'm the best, and all of the others are inferior to me. Right, except my guru. He's better than me, of course. But he's good because I've chosen him as my guru. So we're both good, special. And maybe my godbrothers are also better than everybody else. No? So, Korma and Balaram, who were far more mature than I was, they knew that if we don't feed the brahmacharis before they serve out the Sunday feast, they'll just be nasty to everybody. Because they'll think, oh no, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to miss out on Korma's stuffed papuri. So, I had a rather poor attitude. Of course, eventually I realised that actually these devotees that are coming to the Sunday feast, it wasn't so long ago I was one of those people. And by the grace of the devotees and by the grace of Krishna, they allowed me to render more intimate service. They allowed me to chant Hare Krishna. In fact, if I had that kind of attitude, then what kind of a devotee am I, really? Not a very good one. So, in one sense, I didn't have a good understanding of what the Krishna consciousness movement was all about. And I don't know what inspired me, but at some point, a couple of years, I started reading the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. I knew it was important. I knew it was an important book. I hadn't read all of the Bhagavatam, and had maybe read the Bhagavad Gita once or twice. But I started reading the Caitanya-caritāmṛta. I took a vow. I'll read the Caitanya-caritāmṛta every day, 20 minutes, half an hour. And so after class, before breakfast, I used to go into the Brahmachari Ashram, which was up here, by the way. This was the Brahmachari Ashram was up in this, up where we now have Prasadam. And I used to sneak away in a corner. There was a little room where there was a hole in the wall, and all the dirty clothes went in that. There was a bag there, and one of us would do the washing, go down to the laundromat. You know where the laundromat is down here? That's where we used to go, still there. But every morning I would read the Caitanya-caritāmṛta for 20 minutes. And I really looked forward to that reading every day. Because what I discovered was I was learning what the Hare Krishna movement was all about. What it is, why it is, what it does, what I should be, what we should be doing as a group of, as members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So I was so happy and enthused, and of course my attitude towards people that were coming to the temple improved also, because I realised that I'm here as a servant of everybody. You know, I'm everybody's servant, and it's my good fortune, and it's our good fortune, and it's the good fortune of anybody who crosses the door and enters into this place, into this sanctified environment. Anybody who enters into the temple is a special person and has to be treated with great respect and care, affection, right? Unless they're a demon, right? Then we can pick up a stick and chase them out. I'll tell you, it was warfare in those days. Literally it was. One morning I went to down the end of this section was where the Sankirtan Brahmachari slept. There was about 8 or 10 of us or 12 of us at any one time. We used to sleep, there'd be a locker, that was your locker, and then you slept in front of the locker. So we're all kind of lined up. Gangeshwara and Pushpanjali and Gopeshwara and there's a whole range of devotees at that time. So anyway, we used to, and Atmarama had us on this commando program where you had to get up at 10 to 3 every morning. Right? 10 to 3. Yeah, that was when the alarm. Korma had his tape recorder used to go off at 4 o'clock or whenever it was, and it was Krishna Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Prabhupada's, every morning with the sitar playing. Every morning we wake up to that. If you slept in, if you got up at 10 to 3, you didn't hear that. And it would be a competition to get down to the showers. It was a joke that Atmarama used to run past the pond and stick his toothbrush in the pond to get it wet so that he could put the toothbrush on it by the time he got to the bathroom and clean his teeth. It was a competition. Yeah, he was our Sankirtan leader. And anyway, I had got to the shower and was coming up. So we used to all stay up here. We had to run down to the backyard. This is why we have a tradition of running down to the toilets, you see, because it started originally from up here. So we ran down to the back, and I was coming up the stairs, and it must have been, 20 to 4. And then I heard this, and then I thought, what the hell's that? Right? And somebody had fired a shotgun through Korma's window. I thought, what the hell's going on here? I thought the Hare Krishnas were peace and love. What have I got myself into here? And then Gaura Gopal used to stay awake at night, and he had this big stick. What it was it was part of the deprogrammers who were basically standover merchants. They told Balaram and Bhagavatam, they told the devotees, look, we know people who are out to get you, right? But if you pay us money, we'll keep them away, right? But this is standard standover merchant tactics. It was them who was threatening us, not anybody else. And so they were just trying to get money from the devotees. And so there was a big fight. And they had kidnapped some of the devotees. The parents had paid them money. Raja Lakshmi, her family had paid them money to steal her from the temple. Right? So anyway, these guys the devotees wouldn't pay them any money, and so just to threaten us, they should fire a shotgun. They fired it through the window in Prabhupada's room, up there, smashed the window. There were shotgun lead in the ceiling, so it had to be all done up. And they fired a couple of shots on the because the lights were on. So it was serious business in those days. Becoming a Hare Krishna devotee was kind of a very serious decision that you had to make. It was life or death. Anyway, reading the Caitanya-caritāmṛta made me appreciate what we were doing, why we were doing it, how to do it, being a member of the Sankirtan movement, what it means to be a member of Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Okay. Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Hare Krishna.